Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you're all having a fantastic day. Thank you so much for checking out another episode of Esports Analysis. Today, we are on board with ENVOY as he and the Chicago Huntsmen for the very first time go to battle against the brand new OpTic gaming roster. So this is actually the first time that any of us has really seen them live and in action. So you'll see right there, ENVOY just got a kill on Draza. Also, the other new player is Hollow. So we'll see how this ends up working out. I can't wait for our next event to see how this team performs in the actual tournament environment. But when it comes to this one, I will say just real quick, as I always do, I'll update you and let you guys know that Chicago did end up winning this map 3-2. There was a player for Chicago that lagged out of the St. Petrograd, which was the last map. So heading into Petrograd, it was 3-1. They only ended up losing one map before that, and that was the Ramaza. But as we go ahead and get into our breakdown for this one, Chicago's doing a nice job of holding down for P2, but they're not really getting any time inside of P1. So they are down by about 20 points right now, about 25 points, but as long as they can hold off those cuts as OpTic tries to push through and get to Cave East, they should be okay and they should be able to make up this time. Let's go ahead. Let's bring up the minimap for the first time today. So as we get into this one, Chicago is getting this back spawn with OGLA spawning across the map. So Chicago got that initial spawn that you really want to have. The only thing that they haven't been able to do is they've really struggled to push through these areas of the map. We've seen ENVOY die a couple times right here in top yellow, right beside P1. So as this moves forward, the second hardpoint has just popped. So if you're Chicago, what you're really trying to do is just block underpass right here, not allow them to get through cave over here by Binom. And if you can do that, then you should be able to make up this time as OpTic tries to push forward and get into P2. If you're OpTic in this instance, you did a really nice job of getting time inside of P1. What you really want to do is you want to push through either this route mid-map or through underpass. And if you can get inside, we've seen this become more and more prevalent here over the last couple of weeks, that if you can get inside of P2, then you can push up inside of these cuts. And even if Chicago is getting that close spawn over on the right-hand side of the map, it's really hard for them to push through. Now, again, this doesn't happen all the time. In fact, it happens very rarely, but that is a potential outcome if OpTic is able to push up inside of P2 and go on from there. As we go ahead and get back into this, if you're Chicago, biggest thing at this point in time is just making sure that you're getting these cuts. I really like the fact that they're hitting this mid part of the map. The more that you can push out and get positioning out towards the mid side of the map, the better for whoever is holding down time back inside. Now, at this point in time, what we normally see from ENVOY is we'll see him leak out over on the west side of the cave. Again, let me pause this and break it down for you real quick. So as P2 comes to a close, ENVOY is the one that normally does it. You'll see Pristini, or if there's anybody else in that scenario, you'll also see them leak out. But it's really tough to get into P3 if you go this way, right? Because as you try to, now things are switching a little bit. So if you're OGLA and you're going to have P3, then you can really capitalize on time inside of P3 by cutting off Chicago as they try to exit through these choke points right here, right? If you can capitalize and get kills in those chokes, then it doesn't allow Chicago, who is inside of P2, to get anywhere near getting time inside of P3. So what a lot of teams will do, and the reason why I pause at this scenario, is most of the time you'll see ENVOY hit Cave West. And if he can get out to Cave West, then that allows him to hit the flank from behind. And if he can get behind soccer fields over here at P3, then that's going to have his team spawning back here with him, which should give them initial time inside of P4 as it pops, right? When P4 pops, then you'll be inside of P4. You only have to worry about a couple cuts right here, and then you should be able to get that time as well. So I know that we've gotten ahead of ourselves a little bit, but I just kind of wanted to break down what we're going to be seeing in the next minute or so ahead. Most of the time, what ends up happening is teams just end up running through underpass. Sure, they might die a couple times, but eventually they end up making it through. Then once you get over towards soccer field, that brings a whole slew of issues, right? Right here on screen, you can see Scump and ENVOY both actually pushing out Cave West. One of them is pushing around the back. Actually, they're going together. And this is the smart way to do this, right? If they both push together, then say if Scump dies right there and he has somebody weak, as ENVOY just did, he can just go ahead and trade that out. And literally exactly like we just talked about, they've pushed out those back spawns. So now as it comes to P3, not only will they have those initial spawns that they want for Cave West as it goes to P4, but they should be able to get a lot of this time. That pinch just sets up Chicago with the ability to enter P3 from both sides and really capitalize on that time. But best thing that I like about scrims is that we can go ahead, we can listen in to Chicago team comps. It's been a while since we've been able to do it, right? We really haven't listened into a scrim since Thursday of last week. So it's almost been an entire week since we've actually been able to hear team comps and what's going on. Of course, it was an event weekend and we were busy watching the CDL and breaking down those maps and stuff like that. But without further ado, let's go ahead, let's turn up the team comps. Of course, I'm still going to break down the most important plays and explain to you guys what's happening as we proceed throughout the first set of rotations. But without further ado, let's go ahead. Let's listen into the Chicago team comms.
Doggy.
Oh, my bad. He's close in the smoke, Be careful.
Yeah, I'm on pinch. They're spawning deep.
I got him on hill. One shot dead. No one close. So you get
I got him in last game back. Short desk.
I got one.
Good job.
Staying down.
Short desk.
Another one back right.
I'm trying to smoke.
I got him.
Wow, unbelievable kills there.
I'm rotating.
There's two more there.
You go deep.
I don't think it's rotate.
Oh, yeah,
That was last
that's
game.
fine.
Trophy on you, Matt.
You peep, Troy?
Two back right corner. I got one on you.
So right here, that was a fantastic job from Envoy. Even though he didn't get a ton of time inside that hard point, what that allowed them to do is essentially that was 20 points that came off the board from OpTic that they weren't able to get. Now, one thing that I will say, and you notice that when Envoy came up off spawn, he spawned right here, kind of in the middle of the cave. And when he came up, he elected to go back and hit P4. But as that was happening, all of the other arrows in the top left-hand corner mini-map that I was paying attention to as we were watching this, all of Chicago's arrows were in this vicinity of the map. So the only reason that that's a little bit of an issue is because as OGLA is getting this spawn, and I know I'm dealing with two greens there, but I think you can tell the difference in the colors. As they're dealing with this spawn and trying to get back inside of P4, it's super possible that somebody hit the bottom side of the map, worked through P3, and they're already on the flank. Again, we don't have ability to watch the minimap on screen, right? We're not in Codcaster mode, but it's super possible that somebody from OGLA has already made that happen. And as we look at the score, it's 93-69 currently. So if OGLA does get this back spawn, it's possible that then they could get inside of P5 and they could capitalize and retake the lead, even though they didn't do a great job in P2, they didn't do a great job in P3. In P4, that was really just kind of scrap time. But if they had a good P1 and a good P5, then the first set of rotations could end up going their way. Who knows what'll happen? Let's go ahead, let's get back in, but that's a potential outcome there.
Back right.
Doggy.
Hang close. Just keep him off the side.
He's fucking
Doggy dead.
Missing anyone?
something. Truck. No, we're not. No, we're not. That was all fun.
I missed.
I got killed from bridge.
Someone at the trophy. Come to town.
Two fridge.
One
One.
cave.
One's got
I spawned close cave again.
Two more middle.
I pushed up broken.
They're running
Someone
up
get
there.
time.
Yeah, I'll get
Never mind. He's already front. Austin. He threw some
Hold cave,
flash.
hold cave also.
Flash me front, guys.
I'm looking cave.
Oh, I died.
One cave on me.
I could have held it. I just died.
Staying down hill. All over
I'm
front,
going
guys.
up
I'm
the
hitting
cave.
over.
Kenny
Cave got me.
Kenny underpass.
I'll kill cave.
Hit it.
Underpass too.
I don't see
Cave
Ken
dead.
under.
I need it under.
Ken's there. Ken's.
He's in doggy. I got two. Yo, make sure.
Outer hill.
Fuck cave, guys. Go through front.
Yeah, one's front, one's close front.
Nice.
Another one front, close front.
Another one cave. Another one cave.
Gaza dead. Grab time. I'm gonna push.
Underpass. TJ weak underpass. There's two underpass hitting you right away.
Pen front hurt.
TJ's very weak.
One more
Pen
cave.
absolute front. He's absolute.
And that right there, I just want to go ahead and break this down real quickly because I think it's a super astute point that Arcides ended up making right there. As they were coming up off of spawn, he told his teammates not to worry so much about cave, because if you get the spawn, you send somebody here, you send a couple people top sandbags, then all of a sudden you're not delegating your resources to getting back inside of P5 and winning back that hill time. So even if you do end up pushed from behind, you should still be able to turn and trade out that kill. What he's saying is just worry about this underpass right here, because that's where OGLA OGLA is most likely to come from and get inside of P5. You don't want to be giving up this time, even though, especially since you have spawns, if you have spawns, you don't want to be giving up this time or not even getting the time inside of P5. So I just wanted to point out that I really liked that call out there from Arstides. I thought that it was a really astute point that he was making there.
Guys, I need over you front.
Preston, you can go.
Underpass.
One shot. I'm trying to stay alive.
One dead.
Under absolute.
One front.
Yellow. You can push your time. Underpass, guys.
Two barrel dead. No in front. No.
And I'll just say real quick, as the first set of rotations come to a close, if you're looking at the score in the bottom left-hand corner, Chicago has a 135-80 lead right now. Those that have become familiar with my channel will know if you can end the first set of rotations in the 120 range, then you're doing a nice job, right? That essentially has set you up for the second set of rotations for the opportunity to win off the second set of rotations. I would have liked to have seen Envoy get through there because then they could have controlled spawns a little bit more as it rotated from P1 to P2. But again, OGLA, even though they're not really doing a great job of flipping spawns, they are doing a tremendous job, or at least they were, of getting time inside of P1. That's not something that you see very often. So nice job getting time inside of P1, although it does look like they've been killed off of that. And now Chicago has the back spawns. They're not getting time inside of P1, but as long as they don't give up too much time the other way, everything should work out. Let's go ahead. Let's listen back in.
Hollow stop broken.
Yeah, hollow top broken. One shot top broken.
Triangle sandbag. Triangle sandbag down.
I got one.
Push out front.
Help him, Sandbags. I'm gonna play your half wall.
Stone. He's going around left.
I'll put you under.
Two back yellow, two back yellow.
Stay down on time. Stay down on time.
I fucked up.
Absolute Tej. Underpass. There's two. Another one.
Two more. One more. Good trade.
Good job, Matt.
Just sitting there. He's
They're gonna be
going
front.
short
They're
now.
They're gonna be front two and under. Front and under.
Underpass again.
Laying under press. I'm laying under press.
Yeah, two, three under. Three under.
Flash out, it's not a trophy, bro. He's on truck.
Oh, dead. I'm underpass.
The fuck? I got two.
Half wall dead.
I have time.
There's 20
You have
front,
time?
20 front, guys.
Front.
Stay down. I'm staying.
And this is a really nice job so far. So currently there's 30 seconds left in the P2 hardpoint, and Chicago is just now getting inside and getting time. So what that means is even though OGLA didn't do as well as they did in the first set of rotations of getting time inside of P1, as they're coming up off of spawns, they've been able to get a ton of kills in these areas right here. And essentially, even though OGLA hasn't gotten inside of P2, they've kept Chicago off of getting time inside of P2. So throughout that entire thing from P5 to P1 to P2, Chicago was really concentrated on holding those right spawns so that as they came up, they could then get inside of P2 and get a bunch of time inside of P2. So even though OGLA is not getting that time, they did a nice job of keeping Chicago off of that time.
One more. Knox. Sweet.
Short.
He's flash short.
Bed's hurt. Bed's hurt.
I need a bed.
They're all spawning front, guys. All spawning front. Rotate P5.
Yellow,
Rotate
yellow.
P5. All front still, guys. All front.
One yellow.
Big kill, Stone.
One shot.
One shot.
He's
Yeah, I'm in
bottom
time.
blue.
I'm looking short.
He went into bottom blue, one shot.
He's flash under press.
He's broken on me.
They just
I'm just
flashed
gonna
in.
broken,
Under
guys.
press. He's bottom blue.
And broken, dead. Another one here draws on me.
I'm gonna help yellow.
He's weak
Bottom
blue.
blue dead. Bottom blue, one shot.
I'm out.
There's a
Another
guy.
dead.
The guy's first. There's a guy first too.
Yeah,
I'm
bottom
out.
yellow.
That's
yellow,
not P5,
yellow,
that's not
yellow,
P5.
yellow.
Up yellow dead.
Nice.
Up 3-3-3. They're
Up
spawning
yellow
behind him.
again. Hollow.
Up yellow. Yeah, he's one shot. He's weak.
You're broken.
Got it, he
Never
got
mind,
it.
this guy's not broken. Jumping behind you.
Got Heady dead.
He got me. One's in
Hollow
bottom
dead. Good
broken.
job.
Bottom broken.
Hitting something, Tyler.
I'm gonna
No,
go.
it's silo. I got one silo.
And again, as
Absolutely.
Envoy comes up off of spawns right there, first 20 seconds or so inside of soccer field at P3 ended up going the way of OGLA. But what they were able to do is, again, they were able to have somebody sneak through Cave West at P4, and they were able to set up those back spawns for P3. Last time, it didn't end up lasting, right? They were able to hit those spawns, and then they got team wiped, and they didn't end up keeping those spawns. But we'll see as we move forward here into P4 if we have an alternate approach, because last time we saw P4 from the right side of the hill, the B-Dom side of the hill. This one, it looks like we'll potentially see a hold from P4 from the Cave West entrance of the hill.
Holding chicken.
Might be.
He's trying to hit this shit.
Get one sniper.
He's sitting. I can't see that
I
fucking
don't see him
character, bro.
beds.
He's just watching short.
Short.
It's hollow. It's hollow.
One's
He
beds
looks
too.
for hollow.
Looking
We're on
short.
pink hill.
He got me
Short,
short.
short,
And one beds.
Are they spawning close to?
Shorts, one
One other point that I'll make real quick is that this is a pretty competitive scrim, right? The other thing that I'll say is that this is Hardpoint. So these players, even though they have 2 new subs, they've been playing, I mean, how many thousands of maps of Hardpoint in this game have they played, right? So where the new roster really comes into play is, will they be able to have success in domination, where you need to be a little bit more coordinated on when you hit flanks and overextensions and stuff like that, and especially in search and destroy, right? In search and destroy, everybody has their individual techniques, the places that they like to go on the map. So this is Hardpoint, where it's basically you try to get a spawn, you get time inside the hill, and you try to get kills. Domination and search and destroy needs to be a little bit more coordinated. So most of the time, you're able to see teams just fresh off of a roster change be able to compete quite a bit. So take that for what it is.
Got me. Why'd I do that? Two there, two broken. They're spawning all front, all front. Front. Good plays, good plays.
Stone.
Yo, he could be your. I naded your under.
Stone went front.
More front.
Sandbags. He hit it.
Spawning cave now, spawning cave, guys. Spawning cave, guys, spawning
Yeah, I
cave.
need sandbags. I'm picking up the cave.
I have underpass,
Sandbags is open. Sandbags is open.
I need a sandbag.
They all have to sit. Never mind, I died. Kenny's underpass, Kenny's
I have your
underpass.
cave.
Wait.
Kenny dead.
Sandbags hurt.
Front spawns, guys, front spawns, guys.
He'll kill me. Oh, shit.
I need front.
Underpass too.
Dead.
One shot, baby.
Nothing under.
I'm out this.
All front, all front.
I might have did it front.
And it looks like right there, as the final seconds tick off the scoreboard, Chicago ends up securing a 250 to 172 victory. If you want to go see the rest of the maps in this scrim, they were fairly well contested from OGLA overall with that victory on Ramaza. Here in a second, I do want to see the final scoreboard just so you can see who was using what and how they ended up playing. So Envoy ended up being the lowest score for his team, but he was 32 and 24. Pristini had a great map at 33 and 23, being that entry man, always pushing the objective. Underneath, Slasher dropped 30. We can't quite see the kills and the death, but Kenny was 21 and 29. Again, Draza was 17 and something. Hollow ended up dropping 26. So even though it was a 250 to 172 victory, this isn't the worst of outcomes, right? If it was like a 250 to 80 or something, they got put in the 100-point club, then that would be a little bit of a different story. But I'm super interested to see where OGLA goes from here, how they end up competing at this next upcoming event. But with that, guys, if you're new around here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I put out brand new videos every single day breaking down and analyzing the Call of Duty League. If you have any comments on this one, were you impressed with what the new roster from OGLA did, or do you have anything to say from the other maps, make sure you put your comments down below. I love the interactions. Leave a like, it really helps out the channel. And thank you guys so much. I will catch you in tomorrow's upload.